Hi, welcome to our Curb Your Cravings. So we are going to kind of learn and discover and go underneath why do we have these cravings? And then what we're going to end up discovering is, hey, what can we do to start taking um, action and ownership of our own cravings so we can start to live better lives and we can be a better version of who we are. That's going to be what we're going to do today. Um, just want to get put my there we go. So what I'm going to do now is going to share my screen.
I have something on my screen here. It says this meeting is being recorded.
So you just have to push. I think it's like okay, got it, or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was down at the bottom. I didn't see it. I got it.
Cool. So we're going to learn what scientists are calling hedonic hunger. So we're going to discover that. So some of you, I think everybody here knows me, but in case if you don't, my name is Georgia. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm the owner and founder of Vitality Nutrition and Wellness Center, where we do individual nutrition counseling. We do micronutrient testing. One of my favorites that I've been doing for the past few years is learning about your microbiome and doing a test to be able to discover, hey, what is going on with my little bacteria? And some of you may know, some of you may know that we are more bacteria than we are human cells. So it's one of the most important things is to learn how do we feed our microbiome. And everything I do is really geared around that, creating a healthy microbiome, because healthy microbiome is going to carry on your own genetics in this world. And believe it or not, we live symbiotically with each and every other living being on this planet. So learning about the microbiome really ties that all together. We also do yoga and meditation, and I believe that when a person doesn't have time for prayer or meditation, that they're really missing out on life, and I think that that's an essential part. We also do retreats, spiritual retreats to different countries. And we have one of my favorite things that we do is our Love Your Body, Love Your Life year-long program, where it's for women to focus on ditching diets, learning how to live better lives, learning how to say yes to myself. What are our limiting beliefs and how do we move beyond them to step into that best version of ourselves? So that's a little bit in a nutshell of what we do here. And so tonight is going to be really fun. So basically, before I start on this PowerPoint is, 98% of all diets fail because we don't get to the root of the problem of emotional eating. So just kind of think about that for a moment and think about yourself in that. But then we might ask, do you wake up not feeling rested? Do you wake up not feeling hungry? Do you have insulin resistance? So these are all, any of these things are kind of contributing to some dysbiosis or in your body. So our goals today is to learn how to balance our meals so we can avoid cravings. Learn how vitamins and minerals play a role in your hunger and cravings. Learn how to address cravings when they arise, and learn how hormones play a role in our cravings. So believe it or not, there are long ways of being that are affecting our own food cravings and addiction. Different areas of the brain are stimulated to remember where to find energy-rich foods, what they look like, and what they're safe to eat. We are brilliant. We have $1 billion computer we're amazing. Sometimes when we get upset and we feel like, oh my gosh, things are really horrible, but if we could just drop into one moment about how magnificent we truly are, like we are unbelievable. So also, this translates to cravings in our modern world as fatty, sugary, calorie dense. And we typically really have those cravings when we're in that hyper stressed state of being, in that fight or flight state of being. So we're going to talk about two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is that hormone that gets released when that says I'm hungry, and it rises just before nightfall, but it decreases until after dark and stays low in the morning. Now, if you tend to find that you actually get hungry at night, there's a couple things. You've trained your body to have that happen as an emotional response, or there's some imbalance going on. So, and what else I want to just talk about? Real hunger, like real, when ghrelin is supposed to be happening, it's because certain nutrients are missing from the bloodstream. That's what happens. And that's when ghrelin will be released to say, hey, it's time to eat, time to grab a bite, right? Many times people will go through the day and skip meals thinking they're being good, right? Or too busy. But it is always a slippery slope, and it's always going to like fire back on you. Skipping meals is not going to serve you. It really causes like hormone balance like crazy. Even though you might think, okay, I'm didn't eat and I'm going to eat that. Like intermittent fasting is one. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of it, because really intermittent fasting, it's just like we all should be going 12 hours without eating. You stop eating at 7 and don't eat breakfast till 7 in the morning, right? Or maybe you go even a little longer if you're working, and maybe it's not all the time. Sometimes it's time restricted eating can benefit different periods of your life. Like I say, everything has a season. But ghrelin, it also can store it. It's responsible for storage of fat, believe it or not. It's released in times when we're feeling stressed. So if you ever notice you're having a lot of, whether it's mental stress or just you're going and going and going, you might have ghrelin being released, and that's not necessarily real hunger. And then sometimes ghrelin gets released when we see cake. We're like, oh, cake, I'm hungry. I'm sure I'm hungry for that, right? Literally, that stuff happens. But we want to learn, and that we'll get to that in a little bit, how we can have this hormone function properly. Now, the next hormone is leptin. Leptin's that hormone that kicks in and says, I'm full, I've had enough. Sometimes when we are maybe we're eating a lot of artificial sweeteners, we're skipping a lot of meals, our ghrelin is going crazy. It's just, leptin just doesn't know what's going on. It can't keep up with ghrelin. It's just like running and running. And so then we cause leptin resistance. So now we eat, and then we see food, or we think about food, we're on TV, we say, oh, I'm hungry. And then we go out and, ghrelin starts again. And, so then we don't know. So it's, and it's what causes us to have more weight gain. When we measure, and you can measure leptin, it's a hormone in your body. Overweight people tend to have twice the amount of leptin at night compared to normal weight individuals. So something to think about, but it can be controlled. Some of you that work with me use the core product, and I know you find yourself, when you take that, you are able to control what you eat better, less cravings, and more weight loss comes in place. And honestly, what that is it's not any fancy supplement. It's a resistant starch. And if you work with me, you'll learn more and more about how resistant starches are beneficial to you. So hedonic hunger, this is what we have, a real powerful desire for food, even in the absence for it. It's like I said, when we see that food, it excites that reward circuit. Sometimes it happens when we just start thinking about dessert before we even finish our dinner. Sometimes it's a situational stimuli, like it's a habit that we crave a certain thing after we eat dinner, right? Or in the afternoon, and it becomes a habit. Because what happens is rewarding that part of the brain, that dopamine, and so we like those feelings, they sometimes they become very addictive. And so food can be just as addictive as, say, alcohol or drugs, or and yes, we sometimes have a prejudice or a judgment against people who have addiction. But guess what? Food, it's the same thing. People just unfortunately tried something in a weak moment, and now they're addicted to it. It's a disease. But same thing happens with food when we're using food to mask emotions or mask our feelings, right? Sometimes we have hunger, and it's not really hunger, it's just feeling, so remember what I said at the beginning. The root of all the food things is really about that emotional eating. um so when we deal with different foods, there can be things that help us curb the appetite. Once again, getting the nutrients that our bodies need. Flax seeds were also measured to curb the appetite. Only 2.5 grams of flaxseed were able to suppress cravings and reduce hunger. That's not much at all. Like, everybody should be having a little bit of that every day. Just a little bit. Like, so maybe, like, for me, I can't put 2 tablespoons on my oatmeal or 2 tablespoons on my yogurt. It's too much for me, like, and or I don't want it in my smoothie, but I can separate. I have no problem separating it, putting it in the yogurt or the oatmeal later in the day. It's good to put on salad. I like it. But flax seeds is also one of those hormone balancers as well. So does that play a role, on why it reduces hunger? Could be. It's also high in fiber. High fiber feeds those creates those prebiotics that feed those probiotics. So maybe there's that. I don't necessarily know all of the reasons, but what I do know is it prevents breast cancer. It prevents prostate cancer. So there's a hormone balance, decreases hot flashes. Seen that over and over again with the women that I work with. And once again, you want to start slow. You don't need to, just because you see something, it's like, oh yeah, you can ease your body into it, and you'll tend to like it. If you go all full boat, 2 tablespoons might be too much for you, and you'd be like, ew, I don't want to do that. But if you try slowly and let your body decide if you like it. Remember, I always go back to this. It takes 7 times for a child to like a certain food. And too often parents, and I see this with my daughter, oh, she doesn't like it. Well, you've given it to her once. It's the grapefruit. Give it time. Now I've had my nephew. He still likes lemons because I trained him, to keep tasting different things. So it's very important to train our own taste buds. Just because you might not have liked something when you're a kid and you're holding on to it, get over yourself. You are a new person from then, and you got to keep trying new things. I mean, it's funny because my kids will be like, oh, I didn't know you didn't like that. Because now I'm like telling them I don't really, but I eat things because I'm wanting my body to see if they feel good. It takes time to do that. So just that was where I'm getting that. Sorry. There's also a few herbs, believe it or not, like, and this really works. I've done it in group, in person, pre-COVID, where we tried this Jimina. It's an herb that blocks the ability to taste sweetness, so balances cravings. There And if anybody wants, and I'm just offering this to you, I have a few bottles in the office that just recently expired. So if anybody wants to give it a try, come by the office and I'd be happy to gift them to you. And you could even just sample, does this really, does this work? Because guess what? Sometimes, just like I talked about with cravings, sometimes cravings are out of control, and they really are. And
Mm.
swim upstream to try to stop them, and we just can't do it ourselves. So remember, I talked at the beginning about learning to live in harmony with everything, all beings, even the bacteria, right? This is a plant. This is ability. You're not doing anything fake, this isn't unsafe, right? It's a plant that stops the ability to taste sweetness. So basically, what does it do? It helps us have less cravings. It helps us have less weight gain. So that's, something to think about. I always take it when I do a cleanse. It's one of the things that I do, because my part of my cleanse is I don't want to have any sweet. I want to get rid of it, because usually when I'm doing a cleanse, by that time of the year, I've gotten back into eating more sugar. As much as everybody, well, you're a dietitian, that doesn't help. It always does. We are a spiral. Life is a spiral. We're always going to have things come up, and certain things are going to keep coming up for us in our life. There's going to be themes, and it's like an onion. We just peel away layers constantly. And so that's the thing. We want to think, oh, I should have been over this. Well, you got over it to that degree, but now there's a new part for you to accept the healing. That is essentially what you want to do, because sometimes this is what happens. The sugar cravings is about other things in our lives that we're going through, that we're resisting for whatever reason, fear, whatever that is. Pretty much talked about this. So I'm just going to stop right here and ask if anybody has any questions. All right, you're all pretty good. Okay. Does this make sense?
Oh, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So I'll go on. So what happens in the body when we have increased fat cells? It leads to higher dopamine. And the more dopamine that we have released, the more fatty and sweet foods are needed to stimulate and desensitize dopamine receptors. Just like a drug addict, need a little bit more cocaine, a little bit more, a little bit more. Sugars goes to that exact same part. Sometimes if you're allergic to gluten and you find yourself having those cravings for wheat products, there are these opioids in wheat that can cause that same thing. Some of you, that's why when you're on the Jumpstart program and you're like, oh, I'm not having cravings anymore, many times it's because the gluten's out of the body, so keeping that in mind. And let me see what else. Okay, increased fat cells. Guess what happens when we are having leptin resistance? When we're also having adiponectin hormone out of balance, causing fat cells to keep duplicating, causing more weight gain. If you've ever been in that part of, you're like, why am I keep gaining weight? It's because fat cells keep multiplying. And so that's where, and then it causes you to have more and more cravings. So it's that cycle, so really important to learn to eat clean and eat regularly. That's going to really pay big rewards. So another thing that focuses on our nutrition. Remember, I talked about ghrelin when our bodies are missing certain nutrients. So there's a couple different vitamins that are water soluble. Your B vitamins, your C vitamins. So those are the ones that we need to keep eating them. Okay, our bodies don't store them, so you can't. It's one of those ones you can't overdo. It's not going to cause you any harm. Okay. So we need to keep getting our B vitamins so our body works properly. Our B vitamins are responsible for our stress. When we're extra stressed, we deplete the B vitamins more. They're responsible for our energy metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism. So when we have adequate amounts of energy to get through our day, your Bs are responsible for keeping your heart healthy, your hair, skin, nails. And many more methylations, genetic, so many reasons. So how do we do this? We eat our green vegetables, our whole grains, our fruits, our legumes. So we want to, in addition, because we are in the 21st century, we need supplementation even of the bees, just because you need them if you're living in this world. And if you are experiencing cravings, you need them even more. So keeping that in mind for yourself. Um, so how do we get our bodies back in this rhythm so we don't have these cravings? So we want to eat at the same time, pretty much the same time every day. Guess what happens? The bacteria and the enzymes that start to digest your food, no, they know what to do when you're in a rhythm, right? It makes it a lot easier. Our digestion strongest between 10 and 2. So we want to try not to skip meals and save calories for later. Doesn't work. You want to eat more of your calories earlier. Okay. Um, Literally, if we can get our rhythms in control, we're going to have maximum fat burning. We are going to learn how to go from meal to meal and use the fat storage that we have for burning. So there's carbohydrate metabolism and there's fat metabolism. And guess what? When we're in that, we never able to go from meal to meal and we're always eating, we're never going to be able to get in fat metabolism. And fat metabolism, I'll tell you, and I know many of you here have been in fat metabolism. It's like a calm energy. It's a sense of peace energy. It's knowing that you don't have a lot of hunger. You're eating because it's time, but you're not necessarily truly that hungry yet, right? And when we eat our large meal in the evening, it just causes more metabolic changes. So what also happens is many people are not hungry in the morning. That's because they ate too late at night, right? So we really want to be able to switch that. So how do we make success for this? We want to move our largest meal to the midday if possible. And if not, just make sure that you're not eating too late. Kind of set a time. And I'm never a believer of being rigid. I think we need to have flexibility in our world. So if you say 8 o'clock's my cutoff point, but somebody invites you out to dinner and you're eating a little later, that's cool. You do that. Or if it's, you're working late or you're coming home late for some reason, it's okay. Don't stress over. It's worse than if you didn't, just maybe eat a little bit later. Master emotional eating is super key to success. Seeking support, working with somebody like me, joining community, with people that are, dealing with some of the same things or other things. Maybe it's not necessarily related to food, but other things that you're struggling with, and like grief or whatever it is that you may, but join community so you can address and get things out. Maybe start journaling is another thing that you could do. I believe prayer, I believe meditation. I really think that those, getting in nature, walking, really will help with emotional eating as well. I did see if I had something written down. So really, life happens to all of us. It's how we handle life that determines our success or our failure. Another one's to cut back on really large evening meals, eat 3 meals a day, and self-care. Try to get on a scheduled time for yourself every day. Most people that I know don't make time for self-care. They think they don't have time. They want to give and give and give to everybody else in the world. And what happens is they start to deplete themselves. They're just giving and giving and giving, but they're keep taking away from themselves. Their light is going out. If you don't take care of yourself, what's going to happen is you are going to end up being sick, guilty, not really giving the love that you're really intending. You're spreading that same thing. Sometimes we have self-care problems because the way our parents raised us. They had very poor self-care habits. They didn't take time for fun and love and beingness, right? Sometimes it's that. Or sometimes they just beat you down when you were younger with your own self-esteem. Who knows what it is? You know why you don't give yourself, because it's righteous, right? To take care of everybody else. It's the right thing to do. I'm going to do this, and it's selfless. But guess what? It's selfish to everybody if you don't take care of you. It's the most important thing I think that I'm saying here today, because when you take care of you, you plan your meals. When you take care of you, you plan your movement. When you take care of you, you seek to with good communication in community with your friends, with your family. When you do self-care, you are happy. You're happy. You're living, you're making time for you. Um, and so it can go so many ways. Let me just make sure. So, all right, I'm just making sure that I'm saying all the things that I wanted to talk about. And I do have one more note that I wrote down is, but when we focus on food only, measuring things, portion sizes, we're totally obsessed with just food and doing the right thing, we're overlooking the real problem, right? Like, we can do it for a certain period of time. We could do it for 30 days. We could do it for 2 weeks, but yet life happens, right? And we need to learn to have tools to cope with those things. Like I said, journaling is a really good one. Meditation really helps. Talking to friends. And so, anybody have any questions there?
No?
No? Okay, so before we go on, I just want to ask if everybody could share, if each person could share your takeaway, something that like kind of hit home with you today. I realize some of you've seen this presentation before, and you might have a different thing, and that's what's so nice about it. It's kind of like when you go to yoga class, you get what you needed to hear that certain time, right? It's the same. This is kind of the same thing. So can I ask for somebody to share?
Well, I'd like to share something about the self-care. And that's what I've been working on. And it might sound easy, but self-care is not easy. Thinking about yourself, making that time to plan your meals, think about what you're eating. I mean, I think that when you talk about the self-care and the planning, I think the self-care seems to almost be more important because when you have, hello?
Yeah, we're
Uh-oh.
here.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you there?
We are.
Okay. My phone battery is going. I'm sorry. I couldn't get my tablet. There was a problem. But it seems like the self-care is more important because that strengthens you to be able to follow up with the meal planning and really think about taking care of yourself, the kind of food that you're eating and what you're eating and how you're eating. And that's what I've been working on. It's not easy, and it really takes a lot of focus and time to really be interested in uh, how you're planning things with yourself.
Mm. Very well said, Carol. Thank you so much. Wasn't that great input, everybody? Yeah, that's great. And congratulations for really, like diving into that and just stepping into like, I'm going to care for myself. Like you said, it's not easy, right? Because I really do think we're very programmed to not do the self-care things in
Yeah,
this fast-paced
yeah.
world. So who wants to go next?
I'll go next because I kind of want to piggyback on what Carol just said. Um, I I totally agree with everything Carol said, and I think when you take better care of yourself, other things start to fall in place. Exactly what Carol was saying. And then every morning I read a quote of the day, and just yesterday, the quote of the day actually kind of fits this point, and it says, "Others' happiness is their own responsibility. I need to focus on my own." And it just shows you how important it is to put yourself, not that you have to disregard other people or disregard their feelings, but it's really important to put yourself first so that you can turn in, you could be the best version of yourself that you want to be. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing I wanted to say. My second thing is that it's so true about eating the meals the certain times of the day, because when I'm at work during the week, I know when my breakfast, lunch, and dinner is, and I am more likely to stay on track. But on the weekends, when I don't have that structure, I'm all over the place. So that's something I have to work on too.
Mhm. Yeah. And I hear that, but at the same time, it's like flexibility, because it is
Yeah,
a weekend. We don't want to
sure.
we don't want to become rigid and then so self-obsessed, right? At the same time, you know. Who wants to go next?
So like what really hit me this time was the increased fat cells increase the dopamine so that you need more fatty foods to like feel good. So like it just hit me like, wow, it's a real battle in my cells, not
Exactly.
just my brain.
Yeah, exactly. And your whole being, and you're just living it and observing it and giving into it, right? Because yeah, it's real. And that's why that, like, I think let's just go back and circle back to like what we said here at the end, self-care, right? Self-care is going to be that foundation of everything else, so we can get our fat
Mhm.
cells back in balance.
Yeah.
So let's go next.
I have,
Okay.
go ahead. sorry, Alyssa. Oh, I have, I put flaxseed meal in my smoothie and I really like doing that, but I never really thought about using it any other way. So I just got so used to putting it in the smoothie. So I'm going to look at putting it in different things now and also look for more sources of vitamin B, getting real familiar with what has B in it.
Mhm.
I'm going to do that.
That's great.
Mhm.
And Brandy.
Yeah, just same thing, the flaxseed thing. I didn't know anything about that. So that's pretty interesting. That really does help with your cravings. So I think I'm going to try to incorporate that in. And
Love it.
also, like, the self-love thing, I agree with everybody on that it is hard to do. And your self-care thing, I keep trying to work at that, making sure that I set aside time every day. Um, sometimes you don't realize how truly important it is. But I did see a quote the other day that says you can't hate yourself into change. So, um, really trying to work on, like the self-love, self-care, and all of that to try to make the change.
Mm. Yes,
Yeah.
everybody's got some really good shares here. Thank you. Um, all right, my thing doesn't want to move forward. All right, here we go. So I just wanted to share some of the events coming up. March 8th, and these are three of them these next two are virtual. Firing up your metabolism. So that's a really great program to learn about. Revolutionizing your health. I don't think anybody's been at that program before. I love that program. It's really about figuring out the aspect of your life that is a bit out of balance at this time and gives a lot of food for thought. And I love that program that I do. And then in person, we're going to, and of course, space is limited on this particular one, but we're going to do in person 3 secrets to ditching diets plus a special. So we have that coming up. And then our year-long program of the Love Your Body that I was speaking about is starting on March 23rd. And if you want, you can go to the website to get more about all of that. So I just wanted to close with like a cute little apology to your body that I have here. So an apology to my body for all the times I hated you and said you were too fat, too ugly, too anything. For all the times I cried in frustration because you didn't look like I wanted you to. For all the times I put you down in my own mind and in front of others. For all the times I allowed someone to criticize you and judge you as not good enough. For all the times I thought you were awkward, clumsy, graceless. For all the times I tried to change you by dieting, depriving you of true nourishment. So hint, hint, remember dieting doesn't work. For all the times, forgive me. Forgive me for not seeing you as the wondrous and beautiful body you really are and always have been. So
Oh,
I hope you liked it too.
Yeah, that
That's-
was good.
that's beautiful. Yeah.
So thank you for joining me this evening. I really hope that this, whether it's your continued journey with your emotional eating or beginning, I just please continue to join that, because it will change your life. Because when we focus on food too much, we overlook the real problem. We want to feel those emotions. So we'll see you all a bit later.
Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Georgia. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Georgia. Bye.
Bye.